At my father's will reading, my name was missing. Then the lawyer handed me a strange envelope. Hi everyone. Before we get into today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel's reach has been dropping a bit, and one of the best ways you can support us is by subscribing. It's quick, free, and helps us keep bringing you new and interesting stories. Your support means the world to us, and together we can grow this channel. Thank you so much. Now let's get to today's story. I'm writing from a temporary account for obvious reasons, and I've changed some details to protect my anonymity. I remember the day my father taught me how to fish. I was 7 years old, all skinny legs and tangled hair, sitting on the edge of his old rowboat while the morning mist rose from the lake like ghosts. He showed me how to bait the hook, his large hands covering mine, guiding them with infinite patience. When I caught my first fish, a tiny perch that barely filled my palm, he looked at me like I had pulled the moon from the sky. That's the memory I held onto during those final months, when I was the one holding his hand, guiding him through the fog of his failing memory. My name is Sarah Mitchell, and for 38 years, I believed I was my father's favorite child. Not in a boastful way, but in the quiet certainty that comes from 1,000 small moments of love. The way he would save the corner piece of birthday cake for me because he knew I loved the extra frosting. How he kept every card I ever made him in a drawer by his bed. The fact that when I called, no matter the time, he would answer with that warm rumble in his voice. There's my girl. I was the middle child, sandwiched between my older brother Marcus and my younger sister Victoria. Marcus was the golden boy, the one who went to law school and married a doctor and gave our parents their first grandchildren. Victoria was the baby, the one who could do no wrong even when she was doing everything wrong. She floated through life on charm and last-minute apologies, always managing to land on her feet. And me? I was the steady one, the reliable one, the one who showed up. When Mom died 6 years ago, after a brief and brutal battle with pancreatic cancer, it was me who moved back home for those final 3 months. Marcus sent flowers and flew in for the funeral, but he had a trial. He had obligations. He had a life 3 states away. Victoria called tearfully from whatever city she was living in that year, promising to visit, but she never quite made it before the end. I held Mom's hand when she took her last breath. And I held Dad's hand through every moment of his grief afterward. Dad and I had always been close, but after Mom died, our bond deepened into something almost sacred. We developed routines. Every Sunday I would come over and we would make breakfast together. The same breakfast he used to make when I was a child. Scrambled eggs with too much butter. Bacon burned exactly the way he liked it, and toast so dark it was almost charcoal. We would sit at the kitchen table, the same one where I had done my homework while he read the newspaper, and we would talk about everything and nothing. He told me stories about his childhood that I had never heard before. About growing up during the Depression, about his first love who married someone else, about the day he met my mother at a church social and knew immediately that his life had just changed forever. I told him about my fears, my failed relationships, my struggles to find meaning in my career as a high school English teacher. He listened with the same attention he had given me when I was 7 years old, explaining the intricate social dynamics of 2nd grade. You're doing important work, Sarah, he would tell me. You're shaping young minds. That matters more than any amount of money Marcus makes or any adventure Victoria chases. You matter. I believed him. God, how I believed him. As he got older, I became more than just a daughter. I became his helper, his companion, his lifeline to the world. When he was diagnosed with early-stage dementia 3 years ago, I was the one who researched doctors, managed medications, and made sure he had someone checking on him daily. When he fell and broke his hip 2 years ago, I was the one who stayed in the hospital, sleeping in that impossible chair, making sure the nurses knew his preferences and fears. Marcus visited when he could, which was maybe twice a year. He would blow in like a storm, all expensive cologne and important phone calls, stay for a day or two, and then disappear back into his important life. Dad would brighten when Marcus arrived, sitting up straighter, trying to seem sharper than he was. I understood. Marcus was the success story, the one who had exceeded all expectations. Victoria was even more sporadic. She would show up unannounced, usually broke and in need of something, and Dad would light up like Christmas morning. She would sit with him, entertaining him with wild stories about her life, making him laugh in a way I never quite could. Then she would be gone again, leaving behind a faint smell of expensive perfume and unfulfilled promises to visit more often. But I was always there, through the good days and the bad ones, through the moments of clarity when he was fully himself, and through the heartbreaking episodes when he would look at me with confused eyes and ask where his mother was. I was there the day he stopped being able to live alone. I was the one who found the assisted living facility, who decorated his small apartment with familiar items from home, who visited him every other day without fail. I was there for every holiday, every birthday, every random Tuesday when he was feeling lonely or scared. The staff at Meadowbrook Manor knew me by name. They would wave when I arrived, and sometimes they would pull me aside to tell me how lucky my father was to have such a devoted daughter. I would flush with pride and deflect the compliment, but inside, I felt validated. This was my purpose. This was what love looked like. In his more lucid moments during that final year, Dad would hold my hand and say things that I treasured like jewels. "You're the best of me, Sarah. You got your mother's kindness, but you got my stubbornness. And that's a powerful combination." Or, "I don't know what I did to deserve you, but I thank God for you every day." Once, about 6 months before he died, he pulled me close during one of my visits and whispered, "I've made sure you're taken care of, my girl. Don't you worry about anything. I've made sure of it." I assumed he meant the will. I knew there was money, not a fortune, but enough. Dad had been a smart man, a careful man. He had worked as an accountant for 40 years, and he had invested wisely. He owned his house outright, a modest 3-bedroom colonial on a quiet street that was probably worth $500,000 in today's market. He had retirement accounts, life insurance, savings. Mom's life insurance payout had been substantial, and he had barely touched it. I wasn't greedy. I didn't spend my time calculating what I might inherit. But I did feel secure in the knowledge that my father appreciated everything I had done. That he recognized the sacrifices I had made, the life I had put on hold to be there for him. That security lasted right up until the moment Malcolm Hendricks, Dad's attorney, announced that my name was not in the will. The reading was scheduled for 2 weeks after the funeral, on a gray October afternoon that seemed to mirror my grief. It was held in Malcolm's office downtown, a place that smelled of leather and old books and furniture polish. I arrived early because that's what I do. I'm always early, always prepared, always the responsible one. Marcus was already there, sitting in one of the leather chairs, checking his phone with the focused intensity he brought to everything. He looked up when I entered, gave me a tight smile that might have been sympathetic or might have been perfunctory, and went back to his screen. "How are you holding up?" he asked, not looking at me. "I'm okay," I lied. "You?" "Busy. This whole thing is really bad timing. I have a case going to trial next month." I swallowed the anger that rose in my throat. Our father was dead, and Marcus was worried about timing. Victoria swept in 15 minutes late, dramatic as always, wearing a black dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. She hugged me, and I could feel her ribs through the expensive fabric. She had always been thin, but now she was gaunt. "I can't believe he's really gone," she whispered into my ear, and her voice broke. Whatever else Victoria was, her grief was real. I hugged her back, feeling the complicated tangle of love and frustration I always felt with my little sister. Malcolm's office had clearly been expecting all of us. There were 3 chairs arranged in a semicircle facing his large oak desk. We took our seats, and the room fell into an uncomfortable silence broken only by the ticking of an antique clock on the mantel. Malcolm entered precisely at 2 o'clock. He was a thin man in his 60s, with silver hair and wire-rimmed glasses that made him look like everyone's idea of a family lawyer. He had known our father for over 30 years. He shook hands with each of us, murmured appropriate condolences, and settled behind his desk with a manila folder that seemed almost too ordinary to contain the final wishes of a man's life. "Thank you all for coming," he began. "I know this is a difficult time. Your father was a good man, and I was honored to call him a friend." We murmured our agreement. The clock ticked. My heart beat too fast in my chest. "David was very particular about his estate planning," Malcolm continued. "We updated his will several times over the years, most recently about 18 months ago. He was very clear about his wishes, and he was of sound mind when he made these decisions. I want to stress that point. Sound mind. Something in his tone made me uneasy. Why was he emphasizing that? Malcolm opened the folder and pulled out a thick document. Let me begin with the specific bequests. This was it. I folded my hands in my lap and tried to look calm, tried to ignore the way my pulse hammered in my ears. To Marcus David Mitchell, my son, I leave my retirement accounts, valued at approximately $400,000, as well as my collection of first edition books and my father's pocket watch. Marcus nodded, his expression neutral. $400,000. I felt a small stab of something that might have been envy, but I pushed it away. Marcus had a family. It made sense. To Victoria Ann Mitchell, my daughter, I leave my investment portfolio, valued at approximately $350,000, as well as all jewelry that belonged to her mother, and the painting of the lake house that hangs in the living room. Victoria made a small sound, half sob, half gasp. $350,000. The jewelry had been Mom's, and Victoria had always loved it. That made sense, too. I waited. The clock ticked. Malcolm turned the page. The house at 247 Maple Street, along with all its contents not previously mentioned, I leave to Marcus David Mitchell and Victoria Ann Mitchell to be sold, and the proceeds split equally between them. Wait, what? The remaining cash assets. Approximately $100,000, I leave to Marcus David Mitchell and Victoria Ann Mitchell to be split equally between them. My heart stopped. Malcolm kept reading, something about funeral expenses and estate taxes, but I couldn't hear the words over the roaring in my ears. My name hadn't been mentioned, not once. The house where I had grown up, where I had spent countless hours in the last 6 years helping Dad maintain, where I had cooked meals and fixed leaky faucets and painted the spare bedroom, split between Marcus and Victoria. The money that Dad had told me not to worry about. Split between Marcus and Victoria. Everything. Split between Marcus and Victoria. I didn't exist in my father's will. After everything I had done, everything I had sacrificed, every single day I had shown up when no one else would, I didn't exist. The room was spinning. Or maybe I was spinning? I couldn't tell. Sarah? Victoria's voice came from very far away. Sarah, are you okay? No. I was not okay. I would never be okay again. Malcolm was looking at me with an expression I couldn't read. Pity? Concern? Guilt? I don't understand, I heard myself say. My voice sounded strange, hollow. There must be a mistake. There's no mistake, Malcolm said softly. Sarah, I know this must be shocking. Shocking, I laughed, and it came out wrong, too high, too sharp. My father left me nothing. After 6 years of taking care of him. After being there for every doctor's appointment, every crisis, every lonely night, he left me nothing. Marcus shifted uncomfortably. Victoria's face had gone pale. I'm sure Dad had his reasons, Marcus said, but he wouldn't meet my eyes. What reasons? I demanded. What could I possibly have done to deserve this? I gave up everything for him. I put my life on hold. I was there when neither of you could be bothered to show up. Sarah, that's not fair, Victoria started, but I cut her off. Fair? You want to talk about fair? You disappeared for months at a time and you're getting $350,000. Marcus visited twice a year and he's getting $400,000. And me? The one who actually took care of him? I get nothing. Ms. Mitchell, Malcolm interrupted gently. Sarah, there's more. I turned to him, and I must have looked wild because he actually leaned back slightly. Your father left you something separate from the will. He made me promise to give it to you personally, in private if possible, but given your reaction, I think perhaps now is better. He reached into his desk drawer and pulled out a large manila envelope. It was sealed with red wax, old-fashioned and dramatic. My father's initials were pressed into the wax. DM. He gave me this a year ago, Malcolm said, with very specific instructions. He said that when the will was read, you would be upset. He said you might feel betrayed. And he said to give you this and ask you to read it before you made any decisions or said anything you might regret. He held out the envelope. I stared at it like it might contain a snake. I don't want it, I said. Sarah, please, Malcolm urged. Whatever is in here, your father wanted you to have it. He spent a lot of time on this. He made me promise that you would read it. With shaking hands, I took the envelope. It was heavier than I expected. I could feel something inside besides paper, something small and hard. Marcus and Victoria were watching me. The whole room was watching me. I couldn't breathe in that office with its leather smell and ticking clock and the weight of my father's betrayal pressing down on my chest. I need to go, I said, standing up. The envelope crumpled in my grip. I need to get out of here. Sarah, wait, Victoria called, but I was already moving toward the door. Ms. Mitchell, there are papers you need to sign, Malcolm started. Send them to me, I said. I can't do this right now. I walked out of that office, down the hallway, past the receptionist who looked up in alarm, and out into the gray October afternoon. I walked to my car, got in, locked the doors, and sat there in the parking lot, clutching that envelope and trying to breathe. How could he do this to me? The man who had held my hand when I was 7, who had saved me the corner piece of cake, who had called me his girl. The man I had bathed and fed and comforted through his final years. The man who had promised me I was taken care of. He had lied. Or I had misunderstood. Or I had built up a fantasy in my head about who we were to each other, and the will was reality crashing down on that fantasy like a hammer. I don't know how long I sat there. Long enough for the sun to start setting? Long enough for my phone to ring 3 times with calls I didn't answer. Long enough for the security guard to walk past my car twice, looking concerned. Finally, when the sky had gone from gray to purple to black, I turned on the interior light and looked at the envelope in my hands. My father's initials stared back at me from the red wax seal. Even his handwriting on the envelope was familiar, that careful accountant script. For Sarah, to be opened after my death. My hands were steadier now, steadied by anger and grief and a strange, hollow curiosity. What could possibly be in here that would explain this? What could he possibly say that would make this hurt less? I broke the seal. Inside was a letter, several pages long, written in my father's handwriting. Clipped to the back was a small key on a simple ring. And beneath that was another sealed envelope, smaller, with just 2 words written on it. The truth. I started with the letter. My dearest Sarah, it began, and just seeing those words in his handwriting made my eyes blur with tears. If you're reading this, I'm gone, and you've just learned that your name is not in my will. I know you're hurt. I know you feel betrayed. I know you're probably sitting somewhere right now, crying or furious or both, wondering how I could do this to you after everything you've done for me. I need you to know that leaving you out of the will was the hardest decision I've ever made. Harder than burying your mother. Harder than anything. Because you, my darling girl, are the child of my heart. You always have been. But that's exactly why I had to do it this way. Sarah, I'm going to tell you some things you don't know. Some things I should have told you years ago but was too proud or too ashamed or too afraid to say. Marcus is a good man, but he's not a good son. I know that sounds harsh, but it's true. He loves success more than he loves family. He'll use his inheritance well, invest it, grow it, and never think about where it came from or what it meant. Victoria is chaos wrapped in charm. She's always needed rescuing, and she always will. The money I'm leaving her will be gone in 5 years, spent on whatever crisis comes next. But you, Sarah, you never needed my money. You needed my recognition, my appreciation, my love. And I gave you those things every day you were with me, even if I didn't always say it out loud. Here's what you need to understand. I watched you sacrifice your life for me. I watched you put your dreams on hold, turn down opportunities, pour all your energy into taking care of a dying old man. And while part of me was grateful, part of me was heartbroken. You stayed because you love me. But you also stayed because you thought it was expected. Because you're the good daughter, the responsible one, the one who shows up. You built your identity around being the one who takes care of everyone else. If I left you money in the will, you would take it and feel validated in your sacrifice. You would think, this was worth it. This was the right choice. And then you would keep making the same choice over and over, with other people in other situations. You would martyr yourself slowly, year by year, until you woke up one day and realized you never lived your own life. I can't let that happen. I won't let my death be another chain around your neck. The key in this envelope opens a safe deposit box at First National Bank, box number 447. Inside that box, you'll find several things. The deed to my lake house, the one where I taught you to fish all those years ago. It's been in my name only since your mother died, and Marcus and Victoria don't know I still own it. It's worth about $200,000, but Sarah, I don't want you to sell it. I want you to use it. I want you to take a year off from teaching. I want you to go there and sit on that dock and figure out who Sarah Mitchell is when she's not taking care of anyone but herself. There's also a letter from your mother in that box. She wrote it before she died, for me to give you at the right time. I think this is the right time. And there's money, about $150,000 in bonds. Not a fortune, but enough to live on for that year if you're careful. The second envelope with this letter contains the truth I mentioned. I need you to open it and read what's inside before you make any decisions about your brother and sister. Please trust me on this, Sarah. It's important. I know you're angry with me right now. I know this feels like cruelty. But someday, I hope you'll understand that this is the greatest act of love I could give you. I'm not leaving you nothing. I'm leaving you everything that matters. I'm leaving you your life. Go to the lake house. Open your mother's letter. Take the time you need. And please, please forgive me for being the kind of father who loved you enough to let you go. You were always my favorite, Sarah. You were always my girl. You still are. That's why I had to do this. All my love, always and forever, Dad. I read the letter 3 times before the words really sank in. Then I sat in my car in that parking lot and cried harder than I had cried at his funeral, harder than I had cried when Mom died, harder than I had cried in my entire adult life. He had done this on purpose, not as a punishment, as a gift. With shaking hands, I opened the second envelope. Inside was a single piece of paper, a photocopy of something. It took me a moment to understand what I was looking at. It was a contract, a loan agreement, dated 3 years ago. From my father to Marcus, for $50,000. The terms were clear, to be repaid within 2 years, with modest interest. At the bottom, in Marcus's familiar signature, was a promise to pay. Clipped to it was a canceled check, for $50,000 made out to Victoria. The memo line read, "Again, last time." And there was a note in my father's handwriting. "Sarah, you were the only one who never asked me for money. You were the only one who gave without expecting anything in return. Marcus never repaid his loan. Victoria went through her last time money in 18 months and asked for more. I said no. You should know this before you decide how to handle the will situation." I sat there for a long time, holding those papers, trying to absorb what they meant. My father had left his money to Marcus and Victoria because they needed it, or expected it, or because it was easier than dealing with their disappointment. But he had left me the things that actually mattered. The lake house where we had been happy together. My mother's final words. And most importantly, permission to stop sacrificing myself. But there was something else in those papers. Something that made my sadness begin to harden into something else entirely. Marcus had borrowed $50,000 and never repaid it. That money should have been part of Dad's estate. That money should have been accounted for. But it wasn't mentioned in the will at all. I pulled out my phone and called Malcolm Hendricks. He answered on the second ring. "Sarah, I hoped you would call. Have you read the letter?" "I have," I said. My voice sounded strange to me, cold and clear. "Malcolm, I need to ask you something. The will that was read today, when was it written?" 18 months ago, as I mentioned. Your father came in and we revised everything. And in that will, was Marcus's loan mentioned? The $50,000 Marcus borrowed and never repaid? There was a long pause. "Sarah, I don't think I should discuss the specifics." "Malcolm, my father gave me a copy of the loan agreement. Marcus signed a contract to repay that money. It's a debt against the estate. It should have been deducted from his inheritance." "Was it?" Another pause, longer this time. "No, it wasn't." "Why not?" "Your father chose not to include it," he said. He said Marcus needed the money more than the estate needed it back. Of course he did, because Dad was a soft touch when it came to Marcus's success and Victoria's crises. He would forgive anything except me taking care of myself. Malcolm, I need you to do something for me, I said. I need you to send me a complete copy of the estate documents. Everything. And I need you to schedule another meeting, with all of us, tomorrow, if possible. Sarah, what are you planning? I'm planning to make sure my father's wishes are actually honored, I said. All of them. The meeting was set for 10 o'clock the next morning. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I drove to First National Bank as soon as it opened and retrieved everything from the safe deposit box. The lake house deed was there, exactly as Dad had said. So were the bonds. And there was a letter in my mother's handwriting, sealed in an envelope that said, "For Sarah when she needs to hear this." I didn't open it, not yet. I wasn't ready for my mother's voice in my head. Instead, I spread out all the documents on my kitchen table and started making notes. I'm a teacher. Organization is what I do. By the time the sun came up, I had a complete picture of the situation. Dad's estate was worth approximately $1,150,000. Marcus was getting $400,000. Victoria was getting $350,000. They would split the house, probably another $500,000 when sold, for $250,000 each. And they would split the remaining $100,000 for $50,000 each. Marcus total, $700,000. Victoria total, $650,000. Sarah total, $0 from the will. But Marcus owed the estate $50,000. If that debt was enforced, his inheritance should be reduced accordingly. Which would make the numbers. Marcus, $650,000. Victoria, $650,000. Equal. Exactly equal. And from outside the will, I had the lake house and bonds worth $350,000. Which meant Dad had actually left each of us the same amount. He had just done it in a way that forced me to claim what was mine, rather than passively receiving it. I sat back and looked at my notes, and despite everything, I smiled. The old man had been clever. He had given Marcus and Victoria what they expected while teaching me a lesson about value and self-worth. But there was still the matter of that loan. And I had a decision to make about what to do with that information. When I walked into Malcolm's office at 10 o'clock, Marcus and Victoria were already there, looking confused and annoyed. "What's this about, Sarah?" Marcus asked. "I have to be in court this afternoon." "This won't take long," I said, taking my seat. I placed a folder on my lap but didn't open it yet. Malcolm settled behind his desk, looking wary. "Sarah has some concerns about the will," he said carefully. "I thought it would be best if we addressed them together." "Concerns?" Victoria looked at me with worried eyes. "Sarah, I know you're upset, but Dad made his choice." "Did he?" I interrupted. "Or did he make a choice that was subverted by information he didn't have access to when he was making it?" Marcus's expression went carefully neutral, which was his tell. I had learned that from watching him over the years. When Marcus went blank, it meant he was hiding something. "I don't know what you mean," he said. I opened the folder and pulled out the loan agreement. I placed it on Malcolm's desk where everyone could see it. "This is a contract between Dad and Marcus, dated 3 years ago. Marcus borrowed $50,000 and promised to repay it within 2 years, with interest. That deadline was a year ago." Marcus's face had gone very pale. Victoria leaned forward to look at the document, her eyes widening. "That's a private matter," Marcus said tightly. "No, it's a debt against the estate," I corrected. "Malcolm, can you confirm that this loan was not mentioned in the will? That it was not deducted from Marcus's inheritance?" Malcolm adjusted his glasses uncomfortably. "That's correct. Your father chose not to pursue the debt. Because Marcus is family," Marcus said quickly. "Because Dad knew I was having some cash flow problems and he wanted to help." "Did he know you never intended to pay it back?" I asked. "I always intended." 3 years, Marcus. You make $400,000 a year at your firm. You could have paid him back 20 times over. But you didn't. Because you knew he wouldn't push. You knew he would let it go because you're the golden child." "This is ridiculous," Marcus said, standing up. "I don't have to listen to this." Sit down, I said, and something in my voice made him pause. Because if you walk out of this room, my next call is to a lawyer to have that debt enforced against your inheritance. $50,000 plus 3 years of interest. That's what, Malcolm? Probably 60,000 by now? Approximately, Malcolm confirmed quietly. Marcus sat down. He looked at me like he was seeing me for the first time. You're not the person I thought you were, he said. No, I agreed. I'm not. For years, I thought I was the good daughter, the one who sacrificed everything, the one who deserved to be recognized for her devotion. But Dad showed me something in his letter. He showed me that you can love someone and still hold them accountable, that you can give someone everything and still expect them to be honest. I turned to Victoria. And you? Dad gave you $50,000 3 years ago. He wrote last time on the check. Did you tell me about that? Did you mention it when you were crying about how broke you were 6 months later? Victoria had tears in her eyes. I needed that money, Sarah. I was in real trouble. You're always in real trouble, Vic, and someone is always bailing you out. Usually Dad, sometimes me. Do you remember when I loaned you $5,000 2 years ago? You promised to pay me back. I'm still waiting. I'll pay you, she whispered. I don't want your money, I said, and I was surprised to find that it was true. I don't want Marcus's loan repaid. I don't want any of this. They both stared at me. Then what do you want? Marcus asked warily. I want you to understand why Dad did what he did. I want you to see what I see, that he gave you money because that's what you value. That's what you understand. But he gave me something else. Something more important. I pulled out the lake house deed and placed it on the desk. He left me the lake house. Just me. It's worth about $200,000. He also left me bonds worth $150,000. So actually, Marcus, I got more than you did, even after your debt. And Victoria, I got exactly what you got. Except mine came with a lesson about self-worth. Victoria was crying now, really crying. I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm so sorry. I didn't know I felt it either, I said. Not until I sat in this office yesterday and realized that Dad had left me nothing. In that moment, I understood how much I had been waiting for external validation. How much I had built my entire sense of self around being needed. I stood up, gathering my papers. Dad was right. If he had left me money in the will, I would have taken it as proof that sacrifice was love. That giving until you have nothing left was the right way to live. But by leaving me out, he forced me to find my own value, to claim what was mine instead of waiting for someone to give it to me. I looked at Malcolm. I'm not going to contest the will. Marcus and Victoria can have what Dad left them. I have what I need. What about Marcus's loan? Malcolm asked. I thought about it. The old Sarah, the one who showed up and sacrificed and martyred herself, would have let it go. Would have said family was more important than money. Would have been the bigger person. But the new Sarah, the one my father had been trying to create with his carefully planned betrayal, knew better. The debt stands, I said. It's part of the estate. Marcus needs to pay it back, with interest. Not to me. To the estate. Split between all three of us according to the will. If he doesn't, I'll pursue it legally. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then nodded slowly. Fine, I'll write a check today. No, I said. You'll set up a payment plan, $5,000 a month until it's paid off. Because I want you to feel it, Marcus. I want you to remember every month that actions have consequences. That family isn't a free bank. He looked like he wanted to argue, but something in my face stopped him. He nodded again. I turned to Victoria. And you? You don't owe me money, but you owe me honesty. The next time you're in trouble, tell me. Don't hide it. Don't pretend. Don't show up with a crisis and expect everyone to fix it. Ask for help like an adult and accept help like an adult. I will, she whispered. I promise. I picked up my folder and walked toward the door. Malcolm stood up. Sarah, he said, your father would be very proud of you. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I think he already was. I just couldn't see it until he made me look. I left the office and walked out into a bright October morning that seemed full of possibility. In my car, I sat for a moment, holding my mother's letter. Then I opened it. "My darling Sarah," it began, and her voice was so clear in my mind that I could almost hear her speaking. "If you're reading this, I'm gone, and your father is gone too. I'm sorry you've had to lose both of us. I'm sorry for all the pain you must be feeling. But I'm not sorry for the woman you've become. You were always my strongest child, not the loudest or the most successful or the most charming, but the strongest, the one with the most integrity, the one I knew would survive anything life threw at you. Your father and I talked a lot before I died about what would happen after, about how to take care of all three of you in the way you each needed. Marcus needs to learn that success isn't the same as worth. Victoria needs to learn that charm isn't the same as character. And you, my love, need to learn that strength isn't the same as sacrifice. I'm guessing your father did something that hurt you, something that felt like betrayal. That was the plan. Because sometimes the people who love us most have to hurt us in order to free us. Go to the lake house, the one where your father taught you to fish. Sit on that dock and remember what it felt like to be 7 years old and catch your first fish. Remember the pride you felt, the joy, the sense that anything was possible. That feeling is still inside you, Sarah. It's been buried under years of responsibility and duty and putting everyone else first. But it's there. And now you have the time and space to find it again. Don't waste your life being good. Be brave instead. Be selfish sometimes. Be loud. Make mistakes. Chase dreams that scare you. Fall in love with someone who makes you laugh instead of someone who needs you to fix them. Live, Sarah. Really live. That's what your father and I both want for you. You've taken care of everyone else long enough. Now take care of yourself. All my love, forever and always, Mom." I sat in my car and cried one more time, but these tears were different. They were cleansing. They were release. When I was done crying, I started the car and drove. Not home, not to school to check my lesson plans, not to any of the responsibilities that usually filled my days. I drove north, toward the lake house, toward the place where I had been happiest as a child. The drive took 3 hours, and with every mile, I felt lighter. Like I was shedding skin I had worn too long. The lake house was exactly as I remembered it. A small cabin with weathered blue paint and a dock that stretched out into dark water. The key was in my purse, the one from Dad's envelope. It fit the lock perfectly. Inside, everything was dusty but intact. Dad must have been paying someone to maintain it minimally. There was still furniture, still dishes in the cabinets, still photographs on the walls. One of them caught my eye. Me at 7, holding that tiny perch, grinning at the camera with gap-toothed pride while Dad stood behind me, his hand on my shoulder, looking at me like I had hung the moon. I set down my bag and walked through the house, opening windows to let in fresh air. The bedroom that had been mine as a child still had the same twin bed with the faded quilt. The kitchen still had the same chipped counters where Mom used to make sandwiches for our lunch. The living room still had the fireplace where we would roast marshmallows on rainy evenings. This place was full of ghosts, but they were good ghosts, happy ones. I made my way down to the dock and sat on the edge, my feet dangling over the water. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink and purple. A fish jumped somewhere out in the middle of the lake, leaving ripples that spread in perfect circles. I thought about everything that had happened, the shock of the will reading, the hurt and betrayal I had felt, the anger that had carried me through the night, and then the understanding that had come with Dad's letter and Mom's words. They had loved me enough to push me out of the nest, to force me to fly instead of staying safe and small and martyred. It hurt. God, it still hurt. But it was the kind of pain that meant something was healing, not breaking. I pulled out my phone and looked at the messages I had been ignoring. 3 from Victoria, all variations of, "I'm so sorry, please talk to me." 2 from Marcus, more formal. "We should discuss the estate matters," and "Please confirm you received my payment plan proposal." And 1 from a number I didn't recognize. I opened it. "Hi, Sarah, this is Dave Monroe. We met at your father's funeral. I was his neighbor at Meadowbrook. He talked about you all the time. I know this is probably terrible timing, but I wondered if you might want to get coffee sometime." No pressure. I just thought, well, your dad said you were amazing, and from what I saw, he was right. Anyway, this is awkward. Sorry. Hope you're doing okay? I read the message 3 times. Dave Monroe. I vaguely remembered him. Tall, kind eyes, a gentle voice when he offered his condolences. He had told me a story about Dad helping him fix his computer, making me laugh even in the middle of my grief. The old Sarah would have deleted the message, would have thought it was inappropriate to even consider dating when she was still in mourning, would have decided she didn't have time for romance because she had too many other responsibilities. But the new Sarah, the one sitting on this dock with the sunset painting the sky, the one who owned a lake house and had a year to figure out her life, thought maybe coffee sounded nice. I typed back, "Hi Dave, I remember you. Coffee sounds good. I'm out of town for a while, but when I'm back." Yes. I hit send before I could second guess myself. Then I composed a message to Victoria. "I'm not angry anymore. I'm at the lake house. You should come visit sometime. Just you. No crisis. No drama. We can fish and talk. I love you." And one to Marcus. "Payment plan approved. See you at Thanksgiving." And Marcus? "Try to be present this time. Not for me. For you." I put my phone away and sat there as the sun disappeared and the stars came out. One by one they appeared. The same stars I used to wish on as a child. The same stars my parents had looked at from this same dock. I wasn't angry at them anymore. I wasn't angry at Marcus or Victoria either. I was just tired of carrying around all that weight. Dad's letter had said I needed to figure out who Sarah Mitchell was when she wasn't taking care of anyone. That was going to take time. Maybe the whole year he had given me. Maybe longer. But sitting there on that dock, with the night air cool on my skin and the water lapping gently below, I felt the first stirrings of an answer. Sarah Mitchell was someone who had loved deeply and sacrificed much. That wasn't wrong. That wasn't something to regret. But Sarah Mitchell was also someone who deserved to be loved back, who deserved to take up space, who deserved to want things for herself. Sarah Mitchell was strong, but she didn't have to prove it by carrying everyone else's burdens. She was kind, but she didn't have to prove it by erasing herself. She was good, but she didn't have to be perfect. Sarah Mitchell was, for the first time in her adult life, free. I stood up and walked back to the cabin. Tomorrow I would clean properly. Tomorrow I would call the school and request a leave of absence. Tomorrow I would start the messy, complicated work of building a life that was mine instead of everyone else's. But tonight, I made a fire in the old fireplace, wrapped myself in Mom's quilt, and opened the box of Dad's photographs I had found in the closet. I went through them slowly, carefully, remembering each moment frozen in time. There were hundreds of pictures of me. Me as a baby, me as a child, me at graduations and birthdays and random Tuesday afternoons. More pictures of me than of Marcus or Victoria combined. On the back of one, a photo of me at my college graduation, Dad had written in his careful script, "My Sarah, the one who made it all worthwhile, the one who will change the world by being exactly who she is." I held that photograph for a long time, and I finally understood what he had been trying to tell me with that terrible, beautiful will. He had always seen me. He had always known my worth. He had never needed me to prove anything. The only person who had needed me to prove something was me. And now, finally, I could stop. I fell asleep on the couch that night, wrapped in my mother's quilt, surrounded by photographs of a life well loved. When I woke up in the morning, sunlight was streaming through the windows, making patterns on the old wooden floor. I made coffee in Dad's ancient percolator and carried it down to the dock. The lake was smooth as glass, reflecting the sky like a mirror. I sat down, coffee warm in my hands, and watched as a family of ducks paddled by. My phone buzzed. A text from Victoria. "Really? I can really come visit? Just to be together?" I smiled and typed back, "Really? Bring your fishing rod. I'll teach you what Dad taught me." Another buzz. "Dave, that would make me very happy. Your father told me you were at the lake house sometimes. He said it was your favorite place. I'm glad you're there now." My heart did a small, unexpected flutter. I let it, without analyzing or worrying or planning. And then I set my phone aside, finished my coffee, and went to find Dad's old fishing gear in the shed. The rod was still there, a little dusty but perfectly functional. I cleaned it carefully, attached a lure, and walked back down to the dock. I cast out into the water, watching the line arc through the air and land with a soft splash. Then I sat down to wait, the way Dad had taught me all those years ago. Patient, present, alive. A fish might bite, or it might not. I might catch something, or I might sit here all morning with nothing to show for it but the sun on my face and the peace in my heart. Either way, I was exactly where I needed to be. For the first time in as long as I could remember, I wasn't waiting for permission or validation or recognition from anyone else. I was just Sarah, sitting on a dock, fishing. And that, I realized, was more than enough. That was everything.